Hey, welcome back to Kirkland's Corner, man. Did you enjoy that segment? Andrew, man, I tell you, I love that guy. I love golf, too. We have a segment here. We're going to recognize this young man to my left. Terrence, how are you, sir?
Walter, you're too kind. You're too kind.
Terrence Collins. So, who's Terrence Collins?
Well, Terrence Collins is just a local fellow here that's been in Prince George's County about 40 years. Veteran, Air Force, United States Marine Corps.
Air Force, okay.
Yeah, and I always say if I'm here to serve my community, and that has been a lifelong commitment, and I have been blessed for the opportunity to do it.
Well, you know, I had a chance to talk to you in the green room, and I'm just amazed by all the stuff you're doing in the community, Terrence. How did you form this organization and what it's called?
Well, CSG&D is just an organization that's connected to Circle of Angels and about 12 other nonprofits.
Circle of Angels?
Council, yes, Circle of Angels, Rural Maryland Council, Not Forgotten Foundation. We just basically come alongside and see where people are doing work in our community and how we can come along and help them. That's what we do. We ask everybody that comes to that table to remove your own self-interest and look at the community side.
Yes.
How can we become better by working together for the success of other people?
How do you, you're doing so many things. I mean, is it just you? Do you have a team? How do you organize this?
We have a team. In fact, we have a team that's forming now to go to Ghana. But we have businesses, nonprofit and for-profit individuals who have an interest in service, and they just come alongside. It's amazing how when you're doing something and it's so impactful, in fact, I always say God makes a way that people come together and align with common interest to make things happen.
You know, when I talk to people like Andrew and myself, what's your passion? I mean, why are you doing this?
The passion is my people.
The passion is your people.
It's people. I've been a drum major, I guess, coming out of that civil rights movement.
Drum major for change.
In the South, coming from the South. You know, Dr. King once said that some of the greatest leaders are from the South. And I've just had a passion, no matter what I do, whether it's in military service or whether it's in community service, to make the difference. Sure. You know, I hear that all the time. They'll look at my resume and say, wow, you've done all kinds of things. But each one of those efforts was part of the passion and my purpose.
Yeah. Now let's try to peel the onion, if they say. So, what exactly do you do with your organization?
Well, what we do, we're in the youth services right now.
Okay.
We have a program where we're doing texting for help.
What does that mean?
Well, texting for help, for instance, for the teenage suicide. They're able to actually text. We don't actually screen the calls, but they go to local professional agencies that are going to do the response for that. The Not Forgotten Foundation, which is also interested in golf, is looking at housing clusters for veterans. Then Community Services Growth and Development deals with homelessness, substance abuse, the opiate epidemic, food pantries in Southern Maryland, you know, wherever there's a need. Advocacy for groups that are underrepresented in Prince George's County and in the region.
Wow. Now, how do you get your funding?
Grants. I'm a grant writer myself, but also we get donations. We have a lot of businesses that also support. Circle of Angels and its support also get grants, and we work together for the development of communities in which are in need.
Yeah, now, you spoke of your workforce development. Tell the viewers about what do you do with that?
Well, I'm working now in workforce over in Southeast in Ward 8.
Ward 8.
Ward 8, right. Working for a company, I don't want to mention the name, but they actually have a inpatient substance abuse program. And many of the participants in the workforce program actually graduate from the substance abuse program. I'm very fortunate also to work with another nonprofit over in Ward 8. They're doing intervention services for kids who are on probation in the District of Columbia. We look at mentoring and tutoring, but also the intervention is to plug them in and to get them prepared to where they can matriculate out of the juvenile justice system and be responsible
So
adults.
what do you, if we can digress, Terrence, why do you think we have this high incident of crime and drug usage in the African American community? I mean, the obvious reasons, it's resources. What do you think? Is it more of a systemic issue?
It's interesting you say that. From behavioral health perspective, knowing that 99% of the behavioral health issues are concerned with the father-son, the father-daughter relationship. Fatherlessness is a systemic issue that needs to be addressed. And of course, unless it's addressed, many of those boys and many of those girls don't know who they are. And that hole which is inside of them leads them to be angry, dysfunctional in many ways. And you can't just do it with doing mentors. You have to get them to recognize the need for that father.
And even, I think, because from the 100 Black Men perspective, There's sexuality issues. A lot of these young boys are being raised by mothers, and I think they have an affinity for what mom cooks, mom cleans. So I think it has an environmental influence on how they are as men. When you and I were young, we were about the same age, we were taught to be, stronger, but I think the role is changing.
Well, I think it's changing interesting because you mentioned about workforce. The father, when I grew up in Louisiana, rural America, my uncles or my father taught me to weld, taught me to cook, taught me to work on cars. It taught me who I was,
Yes.
but it also trained me for the workforce.
Yes.
I think there's the old proverb, interesting, where you remove the older elephants and the young elephants don't know how to behave. They're real angry and they're attacking everyone.
I like that proverb, yeah.
Yes. And so I think you see it, and I think it's planned. You look in Washington, D.C., and particularly 78% of the household are single-family headed households.
Yes.
Then welfare comes in. I like to think about Claude Anderson, where he talks about business development. We can't hire individuals that are returning citizens. There's issues that need to be addressed, and it's going to take money, but it is also going to take people committed to reduce fatherlessness.
So you had mentioned about a youth think tank. Tell us about what does that mean, and what is that? Are you some sort of think tank that you're working with?
Well, what we're doing, we got a coalition of churches that also work with us. Four Corners Ministry that does ministries around the world.
Who else?
Right, Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Lanham, Maryland.
Atlanta, Maryland.
One of the things that we look to do is always bring people together and come up with ideas to make the community better. And that's what the think tank is bringing people in to where they can kind of bounce ideas off of other people and then think about how we can solve some problems.
And I think when you look at the graduation rate, Terrence, I don't know if you know this, but in Prince George's County, it's ridiculous. It was 82%. It's trending up to, I think, 85%. Baltimore is 79%. I don't know what DC's numbers are. Montgomery County is 92%. Howard County is 95%. Did you know that?
Yes.
So the graduation rate, it's unacceptable, because when I was in school, I think we had close to 100% participation. But there's kids that are getting high, that are just doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And I'm not sure, and I commend you on your organization of what you're doing for the intervention, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. What I'm finding, even from the behavior health and substance abuse, it's how do you manage the addiction? It's not going to eradicate it.
How do you manage it? Right, good point, Terrence.
The numbers in the District of Columbia is that if a kid is flunking, he's probably had a marijuana use within 30 days. And they have legalized marijuana. So now how do you teach those children and adults to manage that substance and still be functioning within society?
I like how you said that, manage, because you're not going to fix everyone. So you're saying just manage it, find a way to trend it.
Being able to manage life skill development, tapping them into what their interests, the intrinsicness of that. And once a kid knows his journey and his purpose, all you do is walk with him. But that emptiness of not having that parent, that father, which is very instrumental in motivating both boys and girls.
Yes.
When that person is missing and that person is not engaged in the process of development, that person have a sense of not having direction.
You're right.
And
I think your think tank, you're onto something, because I think the higher level in conflict resolution and higher thinking, cognitive thinking process, I remember when I went to Rutgers a long time ago, my peer group were watching CNN and MSNBC, and I think you got to put the youth into that environment to expand their mental capacities. And I think we were talking in the green room that they only know what they know. So if they're in the city, and I think you had mentioned this earlier about how they are, if that's all they see, they don't go outside. Let's say if they're in D.C., they don't go to Charles County, correct?
Exactly.
So how do you get that cross-pollination? Because I think that's how they grow. How can we get that cross-pollination in different areas and within this region?
It's going and get them where they are and walking with them and building the relationship to where they'll trust you enough. And when they venture out, be with them in that experience so that you can explain what is occurring in their lives. It's interesting. I had a moving company, and we actually work with a group called Teen Challenge. Now, Teen Challenge is mostly Caucasian young men who are dealing with substance abuse.
Teen Challenge.
Teen Challenge, right here in central Prince George's County.
Prince George's County.
But we did a moving job. Men fellowship in working, very important. So while we were doing the moving job, we had a couple of young men who were on probation in D.C., in the juvenile justice system. And I asked the young man, I said, what the experience was to work with these men for a 2-day period. And the young man said, well, I've had charges of armed robbery
Oh,
in
my
my
goodness.
lifetime twice.
Jeez,
And
twice.
he said the people that I would rob was generally white people. And I said, why were you doing
Wow.
that? He said, because I thought they didn't like me. But now that I've actually worked side by side
Different
and
opinion.
experienced the brotherhood with white guys in Teen Challenge who have went through many of the sufferings that I'm dealing with, I have a better understanding that they don't hate me. That we have a lot of things in common and that we can work together, and I will not go out anymore and rob anyone.
That's
His life
amazing.
was changed because he had an opportunity to meet the people who he thought didn't like
I
him,
know.
and to find out that they have a lot of things in common. And that's like with fatherlessness. If we realize that fatherlessness just doesn't impact the African American community, it doesn't just impact the Hispanic community, it impacts mankind, humanity. Community and cities and all of our communities are devastated
Yes.
when the father has been removed from the role in which he should play.
Wow, that's huge.
Yes. Yeah.
You're doing some great stuff. What's this Text for Help? You have it's just similar to some chat session. What is this Text for Help? Because that's
It's
one of your initiatives too, right?
That's one of our initiatives that we're partnering with World Communication there. Any companies that decide to bring the Text for Help platform into their businesses, then they make a donation to the nonprofit that is actually facilitating the Text for Help. Kids who are struggling with problems. One of the things we're doing, we're planning a conference to where we're actually going to sit in a room, and then kids are going to be able to text their concerns to a panel, which is also using innovation.
Now, is the panel there, or is it going to be digital?
In the same room.
In the same
In
room.
the same room.
So tell the viewers how that's going to work. So they're going to be in the same room. They're going to text their concern for help.
Any kind of questions that they may have, they're going to text that information into the panel, and then the panel's going to respond back by text. And then after that, we're going to process some of the answers and some of the questions that
Now, why
were
not
shared.
do it live?
Well, we are going to do it.
Oh, I
live.
see.
And
But
a
you're gonna do it-
digital experience, teaching them how to use that digital platform to get in touch with information and with people who can give them direction in whatever
Well,
crisis
you know
they're
what?
dealing
You
with.
bring up a good point because the technology, this device here, and we talk about this many times on Kirkland Corner, I think it's caused a disconnect with our youth in terms of the way they break up, in terms of the way they communicate to their parents. My sons, they walk up to you, they're holding a phone like this. So this technology has enabled us, but I think it's hurt us from an emotion. They don't know how to communicate, Terrence, correct?
Well, they do. They communicate in the way that they're using the innovation. I think Wi-Fi itself is addictive, and we have such reliance upon it that it just becomes second nature because it fits into our balance of the flow and when we're doing things.
Okay.
We can walk, we can sing, we can use it for the information, we can communicate, we can allow it to expand our personality and the knowledge we have of the world and the things around us. But the personal talking back and forth is something that we are doing, but we're using the innovation to do it.
Well, I just think it's disheartening the way people communicate with this device because, see, a text could be, you could say something and you could have a different feeling or inflection, suicide or whatever the case may be, and I think it just causes a disconnect in the way they communicate. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work because they're going to text you, then you're going to take that and regurgitate it, and then you're going to have a little interaction with them.
Yes.
And you're going to review the text.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about bullying, we're going to talk about suicide, we're going to talk about parent-children relationships. Often people can use the text as not having to worry about emphasis on who they are, but the information that they have challenges with, they'll share it.
What's your thoughts about social media? I mean, we both have been with mentoring organizations, and I went to Rutgers, and let me tell you what happened. There was a young guy who just became gay, had sex, and they videotaped it on social media, and he ended up committing suicide after he saw it on social media, on Facebook. What's your thoughts about social media and how it affects the youth?
I think it has an impact on the youth itself. I raised 3 children, and I allowed them to be able to use computers. I didn't put safeguards and guard where they went. It was an honor system that they understood that they had a certain trust between
Honor
in our
system, yeah.
relationship,
Right.
that they were going to make responsible decisions. I think that's one thing that has to happen in the whole process, is that those who are older like myself is not coming up with the solutions, but let the young people begin to have input on how to deal with those issues. A lot of time we set up programs and most of the people who are giving the answers don't look like the young people. But there's a responsibility for them in this day of modernity and adolescency
Yes.
that they learn and allowed to make early decisions and understand the importance of those decisions. I think they're very qualified to decide the process in managing their lives.
That's true.
Because, manageability is skills that most of our young people are forced to use at a very young age.
I know,
When I was growing up, I didn't have to worry about checkbooks and debit cards and all of these things. Our young people now have a phone to where they can look at pornography.
They have a thing called Instagram. They have a thing called, Snapchat. They have a thing called Tinder.
Right.
They have so much stimulation. So you get people taking on different identities.
Right.
I mean, Terrence, it's kind of scary. It's kind of eerie that you think you're talking to Walter or Terrence and you're talking to some pedophile.
Right.
What's your thoughts on that with social media and devices?
It comes back to the boundaries. A young kid can have a discussion with a pedophile, but having that discussion doesn't mean that that kid's going to meet that person in the park because they understand the safety issues associated with the conversation. And I think that they can be trained and developed to be wiser in making those decisions.
Yes.
Because there's always things that are predatory and things going on around us that we're not aware of.
Right.
I think what it is that we have to educate our young people and teach them how to use the responsibility given in a responsible way, and they're able to make the right decisions.
Yeah, so
I've seen it. Yeah.
As we close this out, tell us about this clubhouse planning. What is that? Some sort of clubhouse planning? What does that mean?
Well, it's a model that's used. Normally, you create an interest in a particular clubhouse. It's a national model. It's places that kids want to come and participate. You can also have it where they do different things like IT training. I think one of the big things about the clubhouse is that IBEST model. Linda and Melinda Gates and Bill Gates developed and put a lot of money into strategizing about that.
Sure.
To where even in school, you have a job coach that comes along in the 3rd and 4th grade because many kids may not go to college. They may want to get a certification.
So you have a job coach at that level coming in?
Coming in at 3 and 4. Because
I love it.
If the family doesn't understand
That's
businesses,
true.
how are the family or the kids going to think about the first business as family?
All right, so we got like a minute to go.
There's many things going on
What are some parting words about your organization? Is there a website? How can I get a hold of you?
www.csgnd.org.
One more time.
www.csgnd.org.
Okay.
And another one is csgndcommunity@gmail.
Say it again.
csgndcommunity@gmail.com.
And we want to thank you for your involvement, your tenacity. You're doing so much in the community with the youth, technology, affordable housing, and Dr. Doula. I mean, you're working with Dr. Doula, I hear?
Yeah, that's a veterans program for homeless
great.
veterans. Great program. We're talking about creating assisted living. Say if a veterans have a home, instead of going to a spin down, turn it into a certified assisted living, and then bring other veterans.
And as you probably know, every 22 seconds, a person commits suicide who's been a veteran. Did you know that?
Yes.
It just blows me away that we don't take care of our veterans.
I've talked to a lot of veterans, the reason why they do that, the disappointment. When you think you're fighting for one thing and then the disappointment when you come back home. And it's not as much as whether you're getting the benefits, but what you believe and you was willing to lay down your life for is really not the truth.
It's not the
of
truth.
What should be done. And I think that's where the truth has to resonate, and not by consensus. But of course, knowing the real truth, the absolute truth, allows our young people and our veterans and people who are suffering to be able to have hope.
I know.
That things can get better.
Well, Terrence, you are a circle of angels. You are an angel. We want to thank you, man, for your participation and all the good stuff you do in the Washington metro area, and just keep up the great work. And we're honored to have you on our show. Hopefully we'll get you back in the future, and we really appreciate you. We're going to close out this segment here on Kirkland's Corner, and we appreciate people like this guy, Terrence. He's just doing a great job. And Andrew, with the First Tee program. So we'll be right back. And this is Walt Kirkland. Don't go away. We have Mark Whitlock, the senior pastor of the biggest AME church in the country. That's right, from Reed Temple. We'll be right back here on Kirkland's Corner. Don't go away.
We grew up together. We believed in something bigger than ourselves. The military took me to one side of the world and her to the other. And even though she was always the strong one, when we caught up years later, I found out she had fallen on some hard times. It was her call to make, but doing it together made all the difference.
When I see homeless vets on my route, I always think to myself, we both swore an oath to protect our way of life, to protect our community. With VA's hotline for homeless vets, I can get them connected with help to get them back on their feet again.
VA's round-the-clock hotline can put veterans who are homeless in touch with the resources and support they earned through their military service. You have the power to help a veteran facing homelessness. Go to va.gov/homeless to print your wallet cards. For veterans who are homeless or on the brink of homelessness, call 877-424-3838.
Sometimes we can do things that exclude others.
Still talking to your friends?
It's complicated.
I think he went back in. We gotta go get him.
Welcome to Jumanji!
Even the smallest words and actions can have a big effect on someone. You have the skills. Because of you, someone's entire day, their year, or their life can change.
Remember, the future is in your hands.
Visit becauseofyou.org to learn more.
Totally, let's do it.